Me, 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 me. Me. Okay, this is Hyper-Catholicism. This is hyper-pantheism. This is decipher of cipher/decipher left as the Old Testament, as cipher/decipher left as the Quran. The New Testament was used for what? In other words, the Old Testament in the Quran, right at the first part, they have a part they said that basically says all you have to understand is here. It says that literally as the Old Testament. And it says that literally another way as the beginning of the Quran. But both the stewards of the Quran and both the stewards of the Old Testament and or of the significance of it as the stewards of the New Testament, for example, simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, relative to what is also the identity of relativity, that is hyper-simultaneous. See, but sciences abridged have not been able to afford this appreciated. And so originally and still, how our countries originally and still were and together are grouped, are as them speaking for a law, originally and still and group together in groups, where they can't entertain that and afford at any location that which is actually capable of being spoken by actually that which is actually perceived and discerned by each person at each age of fact-keeping nature from being voiced. Preemptively, the breaching method knew that its causes to this would be demonstrated through ourselves, to ourselves, as nature simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously with that demonstrating it. And so it knew it would have to engineer and sustain and propagate a whole bunch of other nature's needs, interests, and styles of fact treatment nature, as law treatment nature, as identity treatment nature, positive and negative treatments, and collusion, as criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and of negative treatment. Like when people try to defend Martin Luther King, even if they're just trying to fight for roles as arrays of opinions that agree with themselves and not, that are in collusion, though, forcing qualities of fact-keeping nature that are preventing where and how the law, where and how the subject has the value of the sequence true at the beginning of it, so critical, and denied from being heard. We are separated. And so this, by motivations, natures, needs, interests, that we could discern. But there are other motivations, natures, needs, interests, too, because of how this is organized to all locations first, originally and still. All locations in other words, all locations, the fact-treatment nature of humanity is in a semi-ancient trap, an archetypal criminal enterprise. More so, the devil / the genie, in other words, than just being the devil. More so, a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, more so capable of countering the real causes of negative value nature progressions acts in natures at all locations, areas, and states. Therefore, locations, areas, and states of formal and of informal and overt criminal enterprises and private ones self-valued originally and still and further over private ones at all locations, with everyone else mixed, all that, and that really what was tied to the styles of fact treatment, the premises treatment time treatment, quality of fact treatment, nature treatment, and motivations for roles with the actual. It's a shared frustrated naive reaction slash S, where and how it goes from the that part of colonization. England can't even remember its history. People are trying to speak for each age of fact should be nature's difference, exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. So even calling, they have people who have been calling the police for years, and they have people that go into police departments and speak with them. And these are policing families still, for example. Originally and still, they've been attaching all their little kids to fake words with police involved with this. They've been attaching little kids to fake words. They've been using the sense and sensibilities around everyone around everybody. So Mike DeMaine repeated that he forced, tricked her, persuaded, used the names of a little girl that lives near me when she was a little girl, and about how she's Jewish per him. I don't know. She never taught me Arabic. I never shot another street. And he got my teacher involved with that. And I never had a personal conversation with her, Miss Riley. Nothing personal, just to keep it real, because he's involved with the child abuser principle. Where it is personal, you guys brought it up. So I don't want to make anything unclear. Only so that kid was going out of his ways to try to make exception to pretend to know me. I had no reaction to Mike DeMaine. And he was across the campus, the room from me. I sat there, and you sat next to him in the front row, Mike DeMaine. And I was arrested that year. See, they were having to hide live progressions from what I caught them doing. And I caught them doing that through time with this Fred Grisette, intercities with locations next to campuses, and with doctors, foreign and domestic, and overt criminal enterprises, and police forms undercover with them or not. They're involved with predicate acts with them and methods of them, and juxtaposed natures of abuses of children and of elderly, and of uses of elderly homes, and also how they have uses of the various natures of court, distinctly not individually grouped in together. How they have the branches of government using crime methods individually grouped in together as victims, but how as victim predators. How the religious locations are in collusion with this. Originally and still, it has to do with how the hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise and or a predicate acts delivery system method as a human fact treatment nature and quality of fact treatment nature enslavement method, and as a method /S, with a /S part is where and how it was maintained self-value, being and having been blamed on other things, others and or on selves, and while being needs to keep obfuscated and prevented a quality of fact treatment nature at each location, relevant to all identities of difference, for example, relevant to each age of fact treatment nature. Originally and still, this was sophistication here before our founding parents. So what they had to leave us, cipher / decipher to decipher, it is also in the premises treatments of the only allowed spoken identities of sophistication / non-sophistication in collusion. So, for example, to pretend this painted roles with its predicate acts against each age of correlation nature from the youngest ages, and it sustained that with all victim roles with it. And so everybody forgot that. I mean, but everyone didn't just forget it. I mean, they couldn't even sense that now because everyone's been sensing the real cause of simultaneously insidious positive treatments and negative treatments and identity treatments, which are simultaneous, as value treatments simultaneous, as correlation treatments, as perceptions. In other words, American freedom has not been secured, and because a whole bunch of lists of reasons that are hyper evidential, but people with things as already written about or as responded to as something things people wrote. It is always written and subjects treatments only allowed to be designed to keep that quality of fact, cheaping nature, force, self-value were at all locations, areas, and states. The only people defending mandated law are doing so to hide lie progressions for themselves and others, and all that is being and having been used remotely by the roles with the breaching method. And this is a phenomenon that was entrenched with all modern countries that are in the semi-ancient trap. And even if that wasn't true, that there's still a method by this. In other words, is manifest to discern it where there was much uncharged originally still. And so, in other words, it's not even ever even mentioned or noticed by anybody, not by accident, that and how it's an imposition on every country, how hundreds of countries grouped at once is time impositions when there are not even hundreds of minutes in an hour. We're in a semi-ancient trap, and no, the ancient flower. Yeah. Species body. Even if we all have a unity, as this unity has systems other than the one that causes evolution's fruits and gifts and means from nowhere, it will still demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Our difference as Earths, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously from the rest of Earth, only has criminally foreign influenced nature. Things that are positive, things like slavery aren't natural. The electrical engineering of the science of our identity of volume shows that it is criminal insidiousness nature. The only way it is natural. It is identity being forced from Earth's nature's relationship to itself that is also positive onto itself forever. It's automatically temporary positive. See, we can make positive treatments as lies, as criminally foreign influenced lies. For example, pretending not to understand that black and white differences were and are caused by that fact treatment nature method that forced that. As the people, for example, with more sophistication by the law than mayors. Now, so mayors, and we said we could reveal them as pseudo sophistication. For example, their roles with sequence shifts leading up to and improving in the Ninth Circuit, right, leading up to the World Trade Center attack. And in that context, right before the attack, they showed the panel of judges legal papers that they had post-dated from inside the court where they had already been brought to the court and time-stamped timely. They post-dated them from inside the court. Those people are also involved with predicate acts on and off Trinity College and CCSU, and in Connecticut cases, having been fabricating audio and video, having been roles with identity theft, frauds, and slanders, and uses of body dumping spots and the spots next to it even, and the investigators of that, and the people in the prisons needing to hide the same lie progressions and lies and crime methods and roles with the nature's roles used with the people that are housing them in prisons and the courts that put them away, not by accident. That's what's actually recorded. They have the news media attaching people to fake audio and video. Has something to do with how people from Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College and other campuses that I didn't even go to, they have involvements with fabricating audio and video, identity theft frauds. They have roles with where they have that with the lie progressions from one campus age to the other and between campuses. And they have uses of motivations, where everyone needed to pretend their motivations are other, and or they have to hide things when they speak. See, they paint themselves in the corners that way, and see, they're denying it, and by delaying what they and why we have to address how they do it at the youngest age, especially for New York City, for example. Then they keep the kids and reacting as victim predators because they're for example, the only way they're going to see it is through each other, but they're making the kids, and their adults are consciously needing the kids through other kids to be involved with identity thefts and frauds, specifically engineered to keep it where if anyone responds or if they have the non-responses, they fit them into collusion with narratives that are reliant upon lie progressions, including preemptively, but simultaneously have no control needing to, because they were shown needs to that by which using them remotely. So, for example, when slavery is brought up, my audience and a whole bunch of audiences actually want and need, when people are fighting or even debating about such, we should be fighting, debating, or whatever to get it done. Fake quality of fact, cheaping nature has addressed this. How to do it is to address slavery, torture with it, the identity theft, the fraud, and the slander with it, and to address how the people trying to address that are in collusion, just wasting time, using time too fast, too slow in the ground locations as the courts and too, criminally foreign influence. That doesn't mean we have to blame another country, but it is what we can only see through them individually grouped and together. It's that breaching method everyone self-valued rolls with. That it was sophistication here, there, and here. That those other countries that colonized America were sophistication here before America was. But it was sophistication greater than them, while it was a complete remote possession of their natures of sophistication over locations, areas, and states. Qualities of facts, qualities of some states of fact-cheaping nature, qualities and aspects as criminal insidiousness, natures like wrongdoers, with mass wrongdoing itself as a criminal insidiousness nature, with mass natures of and methods of predicate acts manifest. A predicate act must be countered as a fact by people as fact-cheaping nature, or with reciprocal violence. See, but we have to, or hyper reciprocal violence. But see, we can't deal with hyper reciprocal violence until we can be hyper positive. So everyone's still hyper negative, trained to be. Everyone's blaming the causes of it and the things manifest on it of it, and as it exactly the ways the breaching method wanted and needs to keep us then and now from discerning what nature shows us. if we attend as a quality of factor in nature using scientific process. Religion is about where and how scientific process was prevented. And so this would create locations, areas, and states where people hurt people and people help people in collusion with and for the significance of the uses of criminal insidious natures of positive and of negative treatments. So President Kennedy said there is a conspiracy against this country. For example, conspiracy theories. They have formal conspiracy theories with psychology and psychiatry that hundreds of countries self-value rules with. The agreements to how they're going to police locations and data and evidence reception. So it has something to do with where Russian identities and American identities and Italian. And so, in other words, there's a Joe DeMauro, and there's a bunch of people from Joe DeMauro that are involved with people from Sicily and from Korea and from Asian countries and with the executive branch involved with overt criminal enterprises, but with those foreign and domestic medical communities, also with sexual and medical abuses, including of even at elderly homes of people, and because of their roles also with probate courts, families, and their ages of them in collusion as victims, but as victim predators, everyone. So we can't leave out how differentially criminally foreign influenced everyone stayed with the one method where they have not, no one has integrity together exactly in collusion with the same life progressions and illusions. So an O'Brien family has roles with Asian nations syntactically and with other cultures on and off Central Connecticut State University and with families along Route 3 in Wethersfield and with people on and off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices involved with on and off Central Connecticut State University, on and off Trinity College, on and off Wethersfield Pizza. Their roles with abuses of, sexual circles too, as roles with identity thefts and frauds. And I had nothing to do sexually with Maria Fazina ever. And I've never seen her on a campus in my life, of Wethersfield campus in my life. Her and Stephen Stocko are involved with a whole bunch of people from former director of the FBI, his co-defendant too. It's not just the judicial branch, not just the executive branch. These are also people involved with overt criminal enterprises and foreign and domestic military and uses of the identity ground locations like the routes, like Route 3, like the routes paralleling. The routes going into, these are people involved with the location, with the natures and methods of organized crime worse than war crimes, since as victims though, but as victim predators, because of the, each age of fact treatment ages rolls with it. So we're predators too, where everyone's trying to make opinions about things, just calling names and pretending courts that are criminally involved are not out here. That's why they attach me to fake words with the news, the Connecticut News, and they attach me to fake emails. And now that they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, they have more. They have a man with the name Mike, I believe Michael Emmett, and there's an Inspector Mike also, and there are other FBI and CIA, and there are other judges, various natures of courts, and people tied to them personally and professionally, involved on and off the campuses in Wethersfield and with houses next to them, involved with identity theft, frauds, instances through Time Connected. Also, as people that just make statements and confessions, like, in other words, they have 3 times Hartford Hospital recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with people that I was trying. I forced people to call the police on because it was with the police, and I know you can't tell on the police, so I then made them tell on themselves. Because even though they show people that record the police when they do things wrong, I wanted to make sure. So what they've been doing too has been wire crime acts and methods to hide this, and it brought up. They brought up roles with people that had roles with different kinds of similar natures of wire crime tricks and methods and fake motivations. Sometimes kids that call up other kids with someone that was listening in the background, they do that to pretend we know we communicate with those people. Before then, like when they're lying about the natures of relationships between kids and fitting fake natures of relationships between kids for the extent of the medical corruption relevant to where and how we have, for example, other natures of corruption, and they all of those locations have to hide life progressions to other locations. They have to hide from her correlation natures, actually inherent means, active and progressive means. So they steal people's identities as unconnected people or connected behind our back, whatever. And they're lying about how and why that we know them. We don't even know them. Like Tom Perone and Danielle Perone, I don't know the names of their parents. And a Mike Kerr and a Jerry Kerr's father has the name Kerr. There's also an officer, Jerry Miller, and there's also a KNE, a bunch of Facebook pages involved also with a Celeste Wells, with people with Facebook involved with New Britain Superior Court with federal crimes, also with a principal child abusers campus, and people on off CCSU and Trinity College involved with judges and prosecutors and their family members with overt criminal enterprises, and with the professors of departments personally criminally involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting fabricated evidences, roles with all kinds of good and bad things with each age. Now, these are people also roles with a Joshua Stryker and a Joshua Julian, timed intercities with others on off of the principal child abusers campus, and roles with some untimely deaths on off Trinity College, where they use that also to plant a fake letter they pretended I wrote, and their roles with email crimes, and they attach me and a girl to fake communications, and they lied about me with communications with other girls. And they did this with there's a Matt Olson and Eric Olson who is involved with identity thefts and frauds. I never had a word or conversation with them in my life. They're involved with a Mr. Neville, and they put a person in my middle school summer school class they forced me to go to, who was one of the people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with criminally foreign influence gangs and people that were killers per themselves when I was a little kid, and when I was in grammar school, and then in middle school. And they would go have conversations with police about things they would bring up. And they would force the kids to try to say different things. Now they're adults involved pretending, because they have pretended they had a conversation. I never had a conversation with the police, and I never had ties to doctors. They pretend I had ties to doctors. They use methods like, you're going to be walking here because you always have to walk here after class, or they're going to have something to make you walk somewhere else, and then you're going to walk back that way. And they time saying something, and then you don't know those people, and they'll pretend that you don't remember or whatever. They also confess, demonstrate, recorded, confirmed. Preemptively, they pretend I don't remember about a girl tied to Eric Oliveri. They're involved with identity theft frauds with people I don't know at all. I remember that though. They're involved on off the state judicial branch offices. and they abused Heather Hansen. They put in my summer school class, and the Joe DeMauro they put in the summer school class with us. So they put us four in there, and now they have sexual circles involved with that, and they have rape threats with the Britain Superior Court. In other words, this guy's involved with sexual crimes still, with identity thefts and frauds. I had nothing to do with Mr. Neville. He just was on a bus when I went to the ski trips. I had no communications with him ever up there in Vermont. I used to have nothing to do with it with Joe DeMauro. And so it has something to do with the past where they were, how they've been. It has to do with offensive evidences. In other words, the town offices, not just Wethersfield town offices, but Wethersfield town offices through time have been criminally foreign influenced through administration. The election lie is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, influenced partially by the militaries and partially by the FBI's roles with other countries like Afghanistan and Korea here, involved with the names, involved with identity thefts and frauds against me, and with the child abuses, and with the uses of the elderly homes, and the spots next to it rolls. They don't even know the extent of their confessions still, because they had a pattern of people, strangers to me, make confessions tied to my neighbors too. The people on off Trinity College and CCSU, my neighbors in Wethersfield, at other locations I lived too. Before I lived there, those locations were already recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the same names on my street, tied to people on my street, involved with these predicate acts with the Wethersfield police, and these methods of them, like switching names and making confessions. And so this is also time I haven't been able to work, and they're not going to be able to pay me back. How old before I turned professional for boxing, and what they did with the campuses. They're not going to even be able to afford to pay me back when the Wethersfield parents find out what the other ones that also have been in private, in their regular private lives, have been with the courts. Now, this is because the former director of the FBI has been involved with child abuses of them since they were kids. They are victim perfect. Forgiveness is not to give up. Forgiveness is to show how they were used remotely since they were kids. And with recorded criminally foreign influence placements or usements of the placements in my class of people in classes I had, and their collusion with people in classes I didn't have classes with, and them trying to lie about the nature of people, going hard, trying to lie about the nature of people at locations relative to their method /S of juxtaposing other motivations, natures, needs, interests, formal and other criminally foreign influence with positive and negative treatments, and syntactically and motivations simultaneously. Everyone's thinking, everyone's preventing what is hyper evidential from being discerned, because it shows what is incapable of defending itself, not by accident, too, where and how the educational department at Central Connecticut State University also has people associated with the various departments in the educational department, with a lot of people tied to the Connecticut boxing gyms, and the uses of the brother of Johnny Duke, involved with people on and off Trinity College, and he has a house right next to it. And that, as the people on Central Connecticut State University, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with predicate acts against me and other people and against my father. And they attached me and him to fake words. And they attached me and my mother to fake words with the news media, too. They have roles with Connecticut news media and uses of their family members for offensive evidence reception, crime methods roles, and criminally foreign influence uses of journalists since they were kids, being told things through criminal foreign influences to exploit that criminally foreign influence, as their roles with, areas juxtaposed natures of organized crime groups, also involved with the news locations, journalists involved on and off Central Connecticut State University. Ones I don't remember the name, I don't know the names of. They know my name because they have sources that are criminally foreign influenced, including Gail King sources, including WFSB as proof. In other words, and please have them respond. I don't have a phone anymore. I can't keep going. How many times I'm going to call them, beg them to fix the fake news? They forced the principal child abuser with that. They forced, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. My town's police chief is involved with them. Also, now I know with the House by others who confessed. They forced me to. Everyone keeps putting more names involved too. They name stack strangers that never had conversations with. I say, oh, he said something online. I have no exact. They leave out what I'm saying about the sequence shifts, about the 4G names, switching names. I can't get anything in writing. They use the tricks of putting a charge and no writing, and then switch and making confessions by switching the names of the officers. So if I try to respond to it, then they adapt what they're going to say in the background because they're leaving out the other instances that they've been involved with the same people with other arrests. They have dozens of arrests. This is also, I tell it best, this is why they have they have criminals that are real bad people. And they say, oh, see, well, a repeat offender. Because the same people that are involved with killers and overt criminal enterprises and the body dumping spots and the spots next to them in ways that show how the remote uses of the investigations and investigators since founding, pounding drums, fake. So there are demoralized families with a whole bunch of other families like Scalora and people from Italy and from other countries involved with identity thefts and frauds. They with my fifth grade teacher, Mr. Abruzzi, too. Identity theft, frauds, slanders with a Debbie Gold, former mayor, and other mayors because of their fears too. Then want to make opinion. Then the scumbags speak. I asked them to report sequence shifts and actual things. They're over there pretending they can't believe that that would fabricate audio and video. They do it. They fabricate emails. They have a Detective Samuda involved with that. We're involved with criminally foreign influence uses of New Britain Superior Court judges and switching the names with officers, and his roles with sexual abuses of girls and women and uses of it as their roles with other women and girls, intercities with the campuses tied to them. Then they're sick fakes with their culture. Then they're going to speak for the law. Detective Samuda, then he's got a son. Oh, he went to Central Connecticut. I bet you went to Central Connecticut State University, you sick bastard. You got some white power, KKK themed military police involved with you too, scumbag. Don't play black. Get on the motherfucking paper. This fucking Detective Samuda. Let's get him on paper because they have switching names at their courts and they have federal crimes on off the principal child abusers campus with that campus and with their roles with the rape threats with New Britain Superior Court's things. And they have some little scumbags involved with the families that answer the phones for the Wethersfield police, involved with I don't know their mother of Jamie Smith and David Smith. They also demonstrate, confess, recorded, confirmed, demonstrate roles, but with that mother, with the town officers of Wethersfield. Now also with these other ones tied to them, recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirmed. There are Afghanistan families, and there are other like cultural and police forum families with the shopping center next to the police department now too, and houses near there involved with sheriffs and things like that. All those elections and stuff like that. With ties to downtown Hartford, Joshua Schumacher involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with the intelligence community, with a Mike Pandolf, and tried to make exceptions to pretend to know me, and their roles with doing that through time with others. And so, and then that became significant because their roles doing it on and off campuses. Central Connecticut State University has roles with Sardi families that a Scalora and DeMoro family are also recorded roles with this, with intercampuses, federal crimes with these people behind my back. And then they pretend it's personal. And it becomes increasingly relevant every time more cops forge and switch names. Every time they use where they've been, where they hang out, like those locations next to the news media locations. And why I have to keep begging you on see, we're not being shown to other people. It's not because of an algorithm. It's because the police are illegitimate, retired, and standing. And the online ones, they're involved with this. It's recorded. Now, these are people also involved with uses of on-off Paul Manafort Drive treatments by CCSU. There's a woman named who uses the name Bobby, who lived on Covington Street, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I don't know if she is a police, but she's involved with some police and courts and prosecutors with various natures of child abuses roles, and identity thefts and frauds roles, falsified police reports roles, sequence shift roles, and way worse, also relevant to their roles with the elections crimes and the houses in Wethersfield and the corners of the streets and people tied to them. All these name stacking. And so they have a Jamie Crone, who's also confessed and recorded involved with real or made up. He said that he's involved with this sociology people or something like that with Central Connecticut State University. Now, so they've been since I was a kid in Wethersfield, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with a whole bunch of sick and weird things too. Weird instances, because these are people who plant evidences, including as fact cheaping nature tricks, where they pretend to film things. In other words, one time I was walking near the corner of the high school. I think it's called J Street, whatever. No, not on J Street though. Like I parked a car and I walked there, and there was someone that started walking next to me, and was like, and trying to pretend to know me, like trying to make it look like he knew me. And one time, a Kevin Harris, we walked out of the side of the high school door. There are proofs that someone tried to film that because they were trying to pretend exceptions. Pretend these are people involved with identity thefts and frauds instances with also complete strangers. Now, a Rick Sam Faglione, and recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed with others that he said that a Canicelis family and my sixth grade teacher, they involved with this, with a former Mayor Gold, her family, a Debbie Gold, and with a Tim O'Brien and his brother and their family involved with criminally foreign influence differentially, as these other ones are too, even with the political flags. They don't care about those. They don't care about those. They don't care about those things. Vaccines. They don't care about when people use hate language on Facebook. They're sequence shifting. They've been planting evidences. So there's a Celeste Wells associated with people from Facebook, involved with New Britain Superior Court with rape threats, that are also roles with the Facebook pages of Trinity College and the Principal Child Abusers Campus and Wethersfield. Other campuses are involved with this, and the various departments of CCSU. Their family members are also, and their extended family members, involved with the child abuses, identity thefts, and frauds and slanders, and uses of them, and class placements involved with this, and their roles with Washington, D.C. corruption, relevant originally and still, tied to the January 6th. They are measured and maintained and capable of defending themselves and not relied upon, not being staying reliant upon since they were kids. Robert Luskin, criminally foreign influence, delusions wrought. What was standing chairperson on racketeering, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influenced and Corrupt Organization Act. So we're going to have to discern hyper organized crime, distinct from, greater than, worse than war crimes. And we're going to have to take control of the statutes, New York, America, world. We can. We could say, this is, stuff is better than free. So these people are offensively pretending physical delusions, juxtaposed with, while offensively preventing demonstration of it per their roles with sequence as self-value, per their roles with the uses of their faith in investigations. Investigators, they don't even know the names of, and there are countless of them. They just know that theater. You either support the police or not. The police and the overt criminal enterprises and everyone else, you guys are all painted many times arrays, just only defending qualities of fact, cheap nature that can't defend themselves and can't afford anyone, let alone a formal counter voice to the real causes of predicate acts, criminal and seizures, natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, to all locations, increasingly since founding, pounding drums. Present, not by accident. People say things got better. They leave out how that was set up. Things overtly insane, sick, were juxtaposed specifically, effectively, to keep out what our founding parents actually left recorded about American history, how they didn't have free speech because of that torture method that measured positive and negative treatments in collusion against all identities. You can't afford the voice of religion. Yeah. So they interpret the Quran and they interpret the Old Testament out of sequence. They pretend passions and emotions. They value, the long having been forsaken, torture, hurt, sick, child abuse, non-distinctly from themselves too, but distinctly. A child abuse method that is on and off campuses, coordinated, is already effectively having been self-valued, handed to those locations by what use all locations. Look at that quality of fact, cheap in nature, regarding, voting. What is simultaneous? There were things way more important than voting. We need to have our rights follow their locations. We need to have the courts pretend that they can't be caught outside of courts, which they are and have been. So, you know what I'm saying? Get me a response. Who denies anything I said? So they make allegations about people in the background. They make summaries of people dishonestly. They try to stack their fake things that they've been stacking. They self-value that. In other words, they have to be shown. Our formal stewards, our overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, they have to be shown how to think. Everyone else with that. You guys have been blaming other things, others ourselves, for the real causes of murders in Hartford, Connecticut, New York City, Wethersfield. You've been leaving out the connections between them. You've been leaving out the uses of them. I don't know the name of a Dave associated with people in the United States military, but he used to live near the I was in his house for 1 second, and it was an exception they made to pretend I know them. Him and a Joe DeMoro and a Ray Colon. Also a Lance Cuddy. is involved down off that street next to the State prison offices, with people on Park Street, with Alina's Pizza involved with the intelligence community, and with overt criminal enterprises as private undercover or what, but they actually have predicate acts roles with them, identity theft, fraud, slander, sequence shift roles, falsified police reports roles, child abuses roles, roles with people that simultaneously they had and have roles with elderly homes, kept needing to hide sequence shifts, things at the same time. Has, in other words. So it's people, Hartford Hospital has roles with the probate court, and there's other probate courts tied to elderly homes with the same names too, involved on off my street with ties to them. Now, former director of the FBI, his co-defendants and their family members also have roles with predicate acts that were connected with their kids on the campuses I went to, and the ones associated with her. They were also involved with the abuses of Heather Hansen because of the roles of uses of them for federal crimes of other natures against others at the same time. And the uses of their parents kept roles wherever they were hiding from their parents. They had them all hiding secrets and things like that. And they had them more and more needing to play identity thefts and frauds, needing to self-value roles with uses of others' names, pretending they know them in context they couldn't be honest about. That's what they keep going. And that's what they start from grammar schools, kindergartens. Now more and more they're going to need, if we shouldn't have to pay, just change the amount things cost. That's what you do. If a woman has to drop off her kids, we have to pay for that. Pay for her to have better food first, and pay for and let her stay home for free, and fix all the infrastructure way better free. Since before cars, they built this crap, and it's good because in the back of your mind you think of New York City. Oh, at least it's not that. Not by accident. So we're not going to separate slavery from torture, from the torture, identity theft, and frauds and slanders, because then we could just see, because everyone A through Z, whether it hurts you or not, you're just going to fight to be a quality of punk thought when it comes to the treatments of the issue of slavery. And the only way to show that how this is the only thing that is allowed to protract thought, not thought, protract truth, not criminally foreign influenced. You guys are all offensively pretending to believe that slavery was and is natural, when it is only natural as criminal insidiousness nature. And you can't have that afforded, countered, or realized. So you need to keep it blamed on things like prejudice. And so you need to keep, rather than people's actual premises treatments from being the subject, you keep everyone fighting to hide how their premises treatments are fake, sick, and worse, juxtaposed. Delusions wrought. Boxing is taught this day. Listen, you are to hear me all. Pray. You may pray. Let me share this because I don't think I have any viewers. Let's see if I can get these people. They show all kinds of interests. Like this person has the app that does this, that does that. In other words, they don't want people to realize how to do things. And in other words, they're locked onto nature of stupid. Here, hold on. Vaccines. I have to just copy this. No one's here, so I don't know what I'm saying. Oh, I'm saying, hold on, in case everyone watches this in future. Now I'm just gonna be right back there. Post this here. Live stream. Live stream. I'm just gonna type. Now I'm almost there. Now I'm gonna type more revelations. Revelation, people. Okay, back to the live stream. So, America, can you hear me? This is a message for American citizens. This is for people that speak English. Here, attend. The Legion wakes as tribe, exception nature, land. The means, one way redeems. It is surging through all things alone, vaccines. Is surging through all things alone in wise for, and even through the force. Wise its course. Vaccines to teach us things. It moves our souls. USA boxing. How many people participate in USA boxing? This is about the electrical engineering of the human fact-keeping nature, not just the language. It's how we fight. This is about how and why we have an identity of relationship to what is positive and to negative simultaneously. We're more and more, we are a quality of diffusion. But see, this system and method, this quality of fact-keeping nature, of a way to use the mind has been prevented sanity and simultaneously has been prevented science per that which engineered them abridged, specifically to have pseudo-integrity, self-value, needs, means, shown to exploit at all locations to pretend to get away with pretending to be integrity. You think integrity of the law has spoken for you, and or as the overt criminal enterprises or the private ones or people A through Z has opinions. You're speaking for the law when you make opinions. See, the law of the hyper-simultaneous has been prevented. The short words and revelations. Here, attend. So they've been using the campuses. The Pearl of Weathersfield is involved with the intelligence community in Cromwell, and reported with the mayor there too, involved with some journalists and people on off the state judicial branch offices with evidences, crimes, as locations, as roles, with all kinds of natures of child abuses, elderly abuses, and something to do with the Capitol, the spots next to the state Capitol, next to the media locations, as people involved with criminally foreign influence. As we have to get a name to do who disbelieves. Do they stack names and then they pretend, oh, well, everyone says that? Says what? They're all saying things in the background they wouldn't say. And if they think they will say it, they're going to get they're speaking through others. They're going to be revealed as frauds. People associated with this Weathersfield pizza, involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders. Also in the form of falsified police reports roles. Also in the form of child abuse roles, sequence shift roles with courts and police forms on off CCSU, on off child campuses I went to. I never saw her on a child campus, but it's Steven Stocco. I also never had a conversation with him. Never was rude to him when other people were being rude to him. Paul Zano and a Ray Clough has something to do with their roles with the ones on and off the state judicial branch offices with Rhode Island. There's a Michelle or someone with her father. I don't know her name's father's name. involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, would they find truths about you and your family, and they make all these lies attached to it, and they pretend they know you, as their roles with investigators, investigations, in cases where they have roles and backgrounds with illusions, where the interbranch have been forging and switching names because of remote uses of their courts and of their family members themselves since they were kids, criminally foreign influence. That's what's actually recorded. No, so various natures of roles with a probate court judge named, I don't know the names of them all. One of them is named Killian, and one of them has the name Della Fera, or is relatives of a Della Fera per them. There's a John Della Fera, or a Mike Della Fera, and there were other Della Feras I don't even know. And there was like a Chris Della Fera, not John. I don't know if there's a John Della Fera. But they're involved with identity thefts and frauds of people next to Trinity College, and with people along Route 3, and people involved with fire departments, and with campuses, and with the Town Line Drive involved with that, and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with sequence shifts and criminally foreign influence uses of their roles with crimes with identity theft fraud, like with a Spada family. They had made confessions to me, and involved with this Cololo family too, lying about his nature of relationship to me with people involved at Trinity College, with predicate acts with this Joshua Stryker I never had anything to do in my life. And then this kid's pretending I'm immature. These are the most immature, physically delusions wrought, evidence fabricating since they were kids, forced roles with it. Now as adults, forced roles with it, but also self-evaluate fakes, because everyone had to say the short words and the revelations by them replaced. So now one has grace, but me. So I'll show you. American history is about a breach of criminal insidious delivery system method. About that, what measures and maintains, who discerns the value, increasing value of where and how overtly / insidiously Native American rights are prevented, while simultaneously sickly distinctly Black rights are prevented, while sickly distinctly anything not Black too is sickly distinctly prevented equality of fact treatment nature regarding such too. Overt / insidious criminally foreign influence, simultaneously delusions wrought, formal and informal criminally foreign influence, opinion natures, and collusion. That's what's spoken to the youngest mind. They can observe that instantly when you talk about putting Black with the law. That's a breaching method. Other is told. Time was going on relative to that. That's relative in other subjects. You got to watch the people pretending to care about the passions and emotions of the kids, because they don't care, and they're sequence shifting when they point to their evidences. Oh, look, he's yelling there. Make sure they prevent people calm means to defend ourselves, and they prevent us means from raising our voice in other contexts where we need to too. Also, by offensively pretending their victims tried to tell on what happened to them, by making things up wrong, because they've been roles planting evidences. So they have a Jennifer Smith and a Christopher Cullen involved with various natures of courts and police forms since they were kids, and medical community since they were kids, delusions wrought, involved with identity thefts and frauds, and offensively other natures of organized crime, worse than war crimes, but as victim predators. I don't know them. They sought me out to pretend other, for example, making exceptions, to try to make exception to pretend other. You know, they also have roles with gun crimes with kids and drugs crimes with kids. All exception nature and demonstration, the same thing. And with, as their roles simultaneously with the physical delusions, because that's how they have roles with the courts and police forms with their roles for trying to set up exceptions on my street. A whole bunch of people tied to a Dillon family. And the Wethersfield police, I don't know their names of them yet. And I only know Inspector Mike, he didn't tell me the whole name. And I only know that they're switching names and forging names with McGee and with Sullivan. So let's get a response. This is also town offices as people that are evidences, roles with criminally foreign influence uses of Congress to hide sequence shifts and remote uses of the FBI, criminally foreign influence uses of the FBI, and the extent of the uses of it disgusting. That's what it's where and how we have there. In other words, also Mark Violet recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with the military with black and white families on and off Trinity College, also through time, as the ones roles with the police families on my street with other countries involved with identity thefts, frauds, and drugs and medicines crimes, and overt drugs and medicines crimes with overt criminal enterprises and gangs and things like that with these kids, and the doctors ones. The doctors, drugs and medicines crimes with the kids too. Fake things with your databases, fake ties to kids, and uses of that. They've been using forced mental evaluation as means to attach people to fake ties to other fake evidences when they have to hide lie progressions. They have police forms that have been getting away with such because of the relativity of where and how they've been pretending their identities are legitimate as courts and as police forms. And as the other countries that have been roles with keeping them pretending they're legitimate when they're not legitimate, and their rules with predicate acts on off the campuses, and through time and intercities connected at the same time, child campuses and older campuses, they are kept needing to hide lie progressions, everyone's uses of others' names and background, others' names and backgrounds. So why make me go deeper? Because we're going to go deeper. If you want, why maybe use people? They need that. They need to stack names. So New Britain schools, please give me a response. I'm having a problem with some more then and now involved with the principal child abusers campus. There's something to do with some CIA and FBI with a guy named Emmett, as one of the ones involved with Central Connecticut State University and other colleges and wherever he went to school. But he's one of the people involved with the intercampuses, and some locations next to the campuses are involved with predicate acts with him and child abuses. The same families are involved with elderly homes, with courts that have been involved with them criminally too, and delusions raw, relevant to the treatments of black and white. We're going to have this properly. We're going to have proper treatment. We're going to treat New York City as a trap. We're going to treat that is enslaved and tortured simultaneously. And the first reliefs for it is going to be us admitting it, because a whole bunch of people know we want to admit it, and people won't let us admit it. But we don't understand how everyone can be motivated for it, partially because they have fake motivations. Even when they have real ones juxtaposed, they're going to have more real ones juxtaposed more and more until we deal with the fake one that is using the real ones too remotely, making everyone do what they don't want to do anyway, or just attaching everyone to fake words like they did with me. So CCSU has various natures of departments. They have people with the science departments also that make confessions and statements and demonstrations of roles having been influenced also by simultaneously timed class placements, people in the class placement. where they use in their family members. That's how they use people. Then they get locked into responding to things they need to forget, and then everyone uses. Oh, I heard this. I heard that. They've been involved. You know, replacing the short words and actually inherent active progressive means needed to be spoke at each age of fact, human nature. And increasingly, they have been stacking other motivations, natures, needs, interests, and identities of the ground, sense and sensibility, needing to sense, sensing and hurting anyone who tries to, use correlation natures actually inherent active progressive means. Too many people for too many ways and needs need to value and keep up worse than obfuscated all that we have actually available as our means. One way redeems. So we're going to discern who's lying here by forcing a quality of fact, human nature that does not deny someone the ability to say that the other people are fighting against slavery wrong or in a self-defeating way. Boxings, we train to win each fight and every day. So in other words, when someone wants to call out or discern, how we discern if someone is making improper treatments of American history, it means that they're making improper treatments by the breaching method, singular. We can discern this how there are grouped methods and motivations, natures, needs, other, that and how they were used remotely. That is also what is actually recorded. See, but what is actually recorded shows that there were criminally foreign influence uses of Connecticut courts. And they were pretending it was legitimate roles, pretending to be against Russian, because they have Russian roles with Russian collusion. The people on off Central Connecticut State University, on off Trinity College, involved with this Timothy O'Brien, with this Debbie Gold's father, with a Thomas Peruta, and some confessions they made to me about Tim St. Hodge. I never had a conversation with Tim St. Hodge in my life. It's an identity theft, fraud, slander method where they spread lies and rumors through other kids. And they make arrests of people. And they have this kid, the kids that lost their fathers, the men and women that use them are also ones involved with other natures of child abuses and people on the child abuser registry. And women judges had to have roles with them, with other natures of organized crime, for the extent of the stupidness that pretends its integrity at each formal location. So we're not going to leave out the torture and the identity theft, fraud, slander also because where and how the invisible is hyper and the hyper invisible is functional that way. It has a tie to our syntax nature. So if someone says, well, slavery wouldn't be if it wasn't natural, you say it's natural as criminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police firm, I'm not a criminal. That's one proof that you don't know how to say that they've been speaking other than what they should have been speaking because they were other than they should have been taught. Boxing is fought, but by the rules. Do here you are. You are. Don't all stay fools. So happy Martin Luther King Day. Hear many pray. Boxings. The species body gangs. We thank you for your fervent speech. We thank you for your spirit. So in other words, even Mr. King was forced to entertain short words and the sense and sensibilities of an audience, a quote, audience, with the sense and sensibilities of the audience. Everyone have it where it is relevant, where and how the short words at the youngest ages are prevented, and simultaneously to everyone how the branches of government are criminally foreign influenced and how the overt criminal enterprises multi-front, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously have to keep the same lies and identity thefts and frauds roles and styles of logic and natures actually manifest, how they are actually manifest, pretended other. That's what's demonstrated. While others are insidiously pretending they can speak for the sense and sensibilities of their own kids, even. They don't even know the sense and sensibilities of their own kids because they don't realize all that I caught them doing because I caught them self-valuing roles with it since they were kids. There are people from the Britain Superior Court who were forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded to self-value roles with federal crimes of juxtaposed natures and databases and on off campus locations, fact, cheaping nature, predicate acts, illusion or illusion roles with those predicate acts and those predicate act methods relevant. So a whole bunch of methods, motivations, natures, needs, interests are quickly understand. We could sort through them and understand what is ordered or greater than, and more finite while had complete remote possession of them, as the breaching method, as the predicate acts delivery system method, as the criminal insidiousness nature delivery system method, criminal insidiousness nature is a positive treatment, fact treatment nature delivery system method that way. Treatments of positive and negative inclusion. So people can't have sane law, can't have honest law spoke online, or they'll make allegations and fake more things into databases to get away with it in backgrounds. You better get me a response. And don't make them pretend it's personal. I love Trinity College and CCSU. I want to know who's playing these games in the background. I'll gather around. And the one like Dean Judd, I never had a conversation with him in my life. And I didn't respond to the confessions of his son and the ones made for him by the people next to him. And they didn't make, if they think they made moves to me, they asked me for help to report the courts and the FBI. I found out also by other who had problems with the same court and FBI in their defending capacities. Former director of the FBI in his defending capacities, various natures of federal criminals. Also, people associated with a serial killer, even if that was a made-up serial killer. Involved also with a Mazzucato family in the Britain and West Hartford. Involved with identity thefts and frauds with my town's police chief. And with some military police, and with Hartford courts, with the family members, various family members of Hartford courts and judges and their family members involved criminally foreign influence with spots next to schools, and with predicate acts leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since. They did the story on Paul Manafort Drive with CCSU. To hide lie progressions, to pretend they had motivations other than were actual. So, in other words, when I was in high school, there were people on Covington Street that were recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, were involved with child abuse, identity thefts, and fraud, slanders against kids, all kinds of abuses of them, with courts, judges, and prosecutors involved with them criminally. And as people with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, fire departments criminally involved with them, and the police forms on all Fox Connecticut News, like these Domain brothers, these Mendez brothers, some Alison Mulcahy, I think her name is. I don't know. And her sister and mother, because her neighbors are involved with the courts. I don't know. But they're also involved with the timing of the Thaddeus Grabowski. And the house is on Hangdog Lane, where it runs into the 2-route highway and Route 3. And so involved also like right around where former Mayor Gold was involved with a whole bunch of natures of abuse of each age with this. See, each age of correlation nature is the victim per what shows everybody their needs to hurt our revelations. And that's where they come from. You observe the breaching method by observing simultaneously how Native American rights are overtly / insidiously not valued the way they should be, like our nature. That they're not, in other words, we're not admitting the identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself that is native pure, let alone them. So simultaneously, how Black rights are denied is value. How they get away with it is value too simultaneously, which has everyone roles, blaming other things, others, ourselves. So we're going to use logistically how New York City, we're going to paint that people stacking spots, make cartoon. No, that's Little Rap Guy and Friends cartoon episode. Right here, reality. We don't even, if they don't have YouTube pages or whatever, we start with the communication to the boroughs for them. Wake. And we're going to stack means where we're going to need them. We're going to so nothing will break our first ever tried think proper, science actually honest, and with passions and emotions honest too. You never heard emotions spoken about honest, because emotions are about simultaneous. You were never allowed to the value of the simultaneous was not allowed. So we're going to train ourselves by not dealing with something so serious like slavery, by isolating it and pretending that simultaneously the torture and identity theft and fraud and slanders weren't simultaneous. Don't pretend that wasn't relevant too. I don't care if you're Black, because that's how you fight. That's how you lose. We all lose if we don't fight that way. And if we don't use the revelations of where and how the Constitution unabridged, how the Constitution abridged, we have to counter how the Constitution is abridged and roles are pretending other and getting away with it. How they're getting away with it. Isms is one of the ways. Having had to replace the short words and revelations at the youngest ages is one of the ways. That having been sustained, found out it had to hide from horror and hurt correlation nature offensively and preemptively. That's sustained, even down to the people living next to the campuses and their family members. They are kept needing to hide lipoaggressions at other locations by stating things, and even the investigators have to pretend it means, they're just preventing people voices and putting fake exceptions that they can't pretend on paper in background and trying to pretend that means we're lying. So that's how they're getting away with lying in the background. So they should respond fast, or someone should. If I saw someone asking to report a child abuse or abuses of themselves or anything, I'll say, what's the name of the police? Make them say, I'm trying to tell you, the McGee, and it has something to do. There's some people involved with the FBI and CIA, also involved with Luigi Guerrero, and they tried to make an exception to pretend to know me with him. And his sister's involved at CCSU and at Rocky Hill High School with people that, in other words, I never had a conversation with her in my life, but the police forms are involved. In other words, with this Jonathan Maya, who's friends with her brother, and police forms that are of the school, and the doctors involved with the schools, and just ones living next to the schools, and their patients are involved with identity thefts and frauds and lie progressions, and the relevance of where and how they make instances of exceptions where they're going out of their way to lie about the nature of relationships between kids. And that also having been brought up relevant by one of the girls who used to make confessions when I would come around a corner when I was a kid, and then make demonstrations tied to that. And see, that was also tied to what I recorded and also methodically by, catching the private school kids involved on and off the high school with judges and prosecutors and police and overt criminal enterprises and private ones kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders. We're gonna deal with this as identity theft, fraud, slanders against each. So we can't be playing the punk game. Oh, it's black. It's a black side or white side. We're going to say either slavery with the other four parts or not, or you're not dealing with it properly. That's why you don't fake passion emotions, even if they're real passion emotion about whatever, but they're not passion emotion, but trying to get the best integrity of fact keeping nature possible. That's what you try to do when there's slavery entrenched. You try to counter it with the perfect way possible, not just who was involved with it physically. You guys were they had all involved with it. And that was a fact keeping nature oriented method to all locations. That's sustained. That was sustained, not just because the positive treatments were sustained too, employed. Everything positive, negative have simultaneous, hyper simultaneous relationship to identity. I'll see. That's why you look at a word as an identity, not as a value. Rise, ye trial tribes. America then comes surging through all things when species, why? And wise, all rise, ye trial tribes.